What's up, guys? This is Wes, Fantasy Smack Talk, Week 14 in the fantasy football season. For those of you who are eliminated from your season-long playoffs, or I guess I should say you didn't make your season-long fantasy football playoffs, I apologize, but of course, there's a chance for a bigger payoff with the NFL FanDuel Sunday Million every week. I'm going to bring you my top pivot picks for this week. Before I do, just want to remind y'all about Fanfootball.ninja. Fanfootball.ninja, sponsor we've had for a few weeks this season, few months. Cool tool, allows you to take all your teams, CBS, Yahoo, ESPN, put them into one portfolio. You'll get notified when your players get dropped. You'll get to follow your waiver wires, and of course you'll get that game center to see all your matchups in one place. Most importantly though, if you sign up, if you join before the end of the year, you'll get free access. So check that out, Fanfootball.ninja. All right, Week 14 in the tournament. Quarterback, get into it. I'm going with JAMEIS Winston this week. Winston 7,200 at home against Detroit. Lingering concerns, I think, will remain over Winston's injured shoulder, so that should keep his ownership low on Sunday. Even if he's still around 10% owned, though, I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with this pick, and I'm comfortable rostering him in my lineup. He performed pretty well last week in his return, threw for 2 scores and 270 yards in Green Bay. And Detroit, his opponent this week, is ranked towards the bottom in the NFL in both overall defense and pass defense. They've allowed the 3rd most passing yards in the NFC all year. So Vegas hasn't set an over-under on this game because Matt Stafford seems unlikely to play, but his status totally up in the air on Sunday. Even without Stafford, though, I think this will be a high-scoring game. I think Winston, finally healthy, will have his best game of the season of 2017 this Sunday against Detroit. Running back, going to roll out Carlos Hyde, 6,700 at Houston. Houston, obviously not a soft draw for any opposing player on the offensive side of the ball, but that's especially true for running backs. The Texans are in the very top of the league in fantasy points allowed to that position, and that should be enough to keep Hyde, I'll guess, 6 to 8% owned at most in Week 14. So what I like most about Hyde is that he's been a huge part of San Francisco's passing offense. He's drawn the 5th most targets in the NFL amongst running backs all year, and over the past 4 weeks, he's averaging 8 targets a game. So that's allowed him to score 8 FanDuel points in each of those games. A minimum, a guy with not a huge ceiling, but a pretty high floor just because of FanDuel's half-point PPR setting. So doesn't have to score, obviously, to be effective. Doesn't have to run for 100 yards to be valuable. He's going to catch the ball, and he's not going to be highly owned against Houston. So I really like Hyde. He's going to be in all of my lineups on FanDuel this Sunday. Wide receiver. My favorite pivot pick of the week is Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson, 7,700 at Denver against the Broncos. Robbie Anderson's an interesting case. Looks like a pretty legitimate wide receiver in this league right now, and he and Josh McCown have quietly been probably one of the top 3 or 4 quarterback wide receiver combos in fantasy football over the last few months. So obviously everybody saw that coming. Anderson, though, has 22 targets and 14 catches over the Jets' past 2 games, and that even includes some pretty tough matchups that have been thrown in there. So hasn't prevented Anderson from exceeding 10 FanDuel points in every game since Week 8. Denver, obviously a top defense, going to keep his ownership low. Top in every category according to FanDuel's metrics. But A.J. Green, Kenny Stills, and Alshon Jeffrey still had huge games against the Broncos. Robbie Anderson's probably going to be a top 5 player that the Broncos have seen all year, which seems crazy to say. But the way he's playing, the way he's gelled with Josh McCown, the way he catches the ball and runs routes really makes him attractive, not just in fantasy, but for any NFL franchise right now. So probably be 12-14% people on FanDuel who will be with me on this one, so not going to be a huge low-owned pivot play, but doesn't matter to me with Robbie Anderson at 7,700 at Denver, and it shouldn't matter to you either. Finally, my tight end this week is Greg Olsen. Olsen is 5,800 at home against Minnesota. Olsen obviously held out of last week's matchup against the Saints. Allegedly, we hear probably on Monday, I think we found this out, they held out Olsen because there were concerns over how his foot would hold up on that turf in New Orleans. Their last 3 games, Carolina's last 3 games, are at home or are on grass. So they think Olsen will be fine the rest of the year. He was a full participant on Wednesday, and barring a late week setback, he's going to be he's going to suit up against the Vikings on Sunday. But I think Minnesota's defensive efficiency this year, a lot of the big numbers that they put up against some pretty good offenses, is going to keep his ownership low. Also, the fact that he had that setback in Week 12 when he tried to return is going to scare a lot of owners on FanDuel away as well. But Minnesota's success, at least against this position, against tight end, has been skewed by the fact that they haven't faced one good tight end all year. Look at the records. They haven't faced a Kelsey, a Graham, obviously not a Rudolph, a Gronk, an Olsen, anybody like that, an Ertz. This team, defensively, obviously solid, but against the tight end, you can't really rely on them to put up the numbers, continue putting up the numbers that they've had all year. So, should be under 7% owned. No one at this price point, $5,800. No one at that ownership is going to give you the upside that Greg Olsen does and will this week. So, I'm counting on him in every lineup on Sunday. All right, that's it for Week 14. Check out FantasySmackDog.com for the story to accompany this video and a bunch of other great content. Also, follow us on Twitter at Fantasy Advice. We'll get all your roster questions answered, all your waiver wire questions answered, and make sure that we give you the best chance to succeed in the playoffs in Week 14.